turn my light off. Do you want me to do that instead?
Oh yeah, no,
Do you not have any other lights? Are you a vampire?
And we're live.
I see 4 lights right behind you.
There are 4 lights.
There are 5 lights.
There are 3 lights. One,
Hello,
two, three.
everyone. Welcome to the Seattle Angels podcast.
Hello,
We have a very
hello. Should
special
we not
guest,
possibly
Gab
get the link to
Jackson.
give to people? Or do they already have it?
Jackson with blue morality and Pav with orange morality.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because black and white is overrated morality.
Yeah.
Are you a vampire?
Someone has the stream up.
Someone's playing the stream in the background, and I'm hearing it delayed as well. This is... We're having every possible technical problem.
I was going to say, we are just failing at everything. This isn't even, like, semi-professional. This is just amazingly bad. I would totally have the stream in the background, but I don't have the YouTube link.
It's right here.
Skype chat.
Okay, there we go. Now what?
Right.
What? No. The solution to someone playing the YouTube channel in the background is not to give more people the YouTube channel.
No, to give it to people who I'm not in a video call with.
Anyways, what are we doing? Did somebody link it in the chat yet? Yeah, okay. I thought I did, but whatever. Here we go
Yeah,
again.
the chat's been linked.
So, I guess we should go over last round's reviews.
We did reviews and stuff. We should probably talk about those.
Yeah, it was a very special...
Yes.
It was the Fluffy edition!
It was a 3
I am fluffier than Squirrel.
by only 3 fluff-ons.
It's still
It's still fluffier.
fluffier.
It's microscopic, okay? Microscopic.
You're just being a sore loser. Besides, we'll get the cat.
Yes, we will. Story number 1, Chasing Winter by Raging Mouse.
So good. Seriously, I don't care if you hate Trixie. Read this damn story.
Yeah, it kind of made me like Trixie, and I kind of really hate her.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because yes, she's Trixie, but she's not like this generic stereotype that so many people rate her as either, oh my god, I have a tragic backstory and that's why I'm such a jerk, or I'm a jerk because no one ever told me. It's literally, hey look, I'm actually a normal pony.
Yeah, it takes
I
place
just kind of
after.
ended up like a jerk. Huh?
It takes place after the Magic Fight one, where Trixie appears
Yeah,
for the second
exactly.
time. And she's now all she knows she's been a bit of a jackass, so she's trying to fix herself.
Yeah, and then just sort of...
and you know it's going well because she starts out in prison.
Oh yeah, getting bailed out. So I mean, that's still some kind of improvement.
Yeah. Published by Bethesda.
Yup. I love that name. Bethesda publishes everything, obviously. Not this raging mouse guy. Totally lies. But yes, the story is literally, it's world building and OC porn. It's just amazing world building, amazing background characters that, like, I started out going, okay, you're probably generic, and I won't care about you guys, and by the end of it, it was kind of, oh my god, I like these characters even better than the main characters who show up.
Well, I mean, that's always impressive. Like, you know, the creation of OCs is usually this very delicate balance. Yeah, and I mean, it can always, you know, you have so many pitfalls. You have the bland cardboard cutouts. You have the Mary Sue. So to have something, you know, so reliable and so gripping is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's just, it really showed, like, they really went out of their way to flesh them out as real living characters. Like, they could have easily taken, you know, the really cheap, lazy route and just made them generic two-dimensional, but the author really, really went out of their way to actually make them solid characters.
Mm-hmm. And I love me some good characters.
Oh, yes. And the backgrounds. Oh, my god.
Yeah, it's quite a long fic, but it's definitely worth reading.
I think it has a bit of a slow build at the start.
Oh, yeah,
So
definitely.
if you're really looking for something that right from the start it's going to slam into stuff, it's going to be harder for you to get into. But if you can accept a slow build, I think it's really worthwhile.
Hmm?
Just, you know, fair warning to people. Because I don't want folks, you know, expecting to go into it and it's going to be amazing, you know, really high octane from the start. I really like this because it feels like it follows a traditional narrative with, you know, rising and falling arcs. That I vaguely remember some from English class.
But I mean, you mentioned that, you know, she's starting from prison as well. So I mean, it's a slow start, but it's not like boring either.
Yeah, no,
It's
I think it's
yeah.
really interesting because the start is really it's a very, very character-driven story. Like the focus, it does have amazing world building and scenery and whatnot. The focus is always on the characters. It's very much a man versus the environment sort of thing, and man versus other. Like it really does sort of switch back and forth between their fighting, because they end up going into the Crystal Empire and to the waste of the Crystal Empire. So there's a lot of stuff, you know, about learning to deal with the cold and traveling and whatnot. And there's also a lot of, you know, these are ponies that have never met each other, that have very differing opinions and personalities, learning to live in close quarters with each other.
Nice.
So, like, the prison start is basically, she's in prison. It's kind of a minor, like, it's an accident screw-up thing, sort of you get a fairly good idea of what happened, but there's still kind of, like, it's tricksy, so you're not certain how super reliable it is. And I mean, she gets bailed out fairly quick. It's more kind of like she starts in prison, but it's not significant. It just kind of helps lead to things. Because the big focus is actually she goes and meets her family, who, oh my god, I love them. Her family is so cool. Like, just, they're literally, to me, it is like the best, it is some of the best Canterlot nobility I have seen written, in that they don't just go, oh my gosh, they're scheming jerks, or oh, they're really good people. They actually make them plausible characters. Like, people have a tendency with the nobility to go, well, they're obviously morons, in which case, how have they survived? Like, it doesn't work that way.
Fancy
And
Pants
so-
is noble, and he's not a moron.
Huh? Yeah, exactly. But I mean, at the same time, the noble class, to a lot of authors, is either made up of absolute morons like Blue Blood, or these, you know, kind, noble souls like Fancy Pants, even though apparently nobody else is like that. It's kind of like Dark Elves in D&D.
Hmm.
They're all brooding, tragic anti-heroes, or they're evil villains. There is no middle ground. And so it's, I don't know, I love stuff like that.
All right, story number 2.
Persisteronic? Or
Peristoronic.
Gosh,
the pigeon one?
The pigeon one.
which is ridiculous.
It's
It was ridiculous, and it was amazing.
Oh god, yes. Anything that is written about a small species will seems to inevitably become awesome.
I never thought that you could write a whole story revolving around pigeon puns, but
I was gonna say, that was pretty impressive.
Hawaii made it work.
basically just pigeons have a secret military organization in Equestria,
organization
and depending on
focuses
who you
on
ask,
one
depending on
thing.
who you ask, their military operations are very similar to what we see in the real world.
I think
And
they're
then basically
fairly
the pigeons go
accurate.
out of their way to ruin Blue Blood's day, and it's stupid fun.
By
And
jumping
they're
on them.
never given an actual reason. They just consider him pigeon enemy number 1.
Yes.
Well, it's plausible enough.
It's basically a story for those who enjoy like just a short, sweet comedy. It doesn't go out of its way to do anything except be funny.
Yeah, it's not trying to tell this. It's not trying to tell this huge, overarching epic. It's literally just, you know, this is how the world is. This is what's happening. End of story.
Like I said in my review, it's like watching those little subplots you sometimes get in cartoon movies, but they're actually entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. Subplots can be entertaining.
Sometimes. I can think of many,
Oh yeah,
many
many that
movies
are
geared
just
towards the younger set that have subplots about characters that just are horrible.
yes.
Mm.
Or, you know, subplots that happen and then they just kind of forget about them.
Yeah.
Okay, third story, Brasta's Birthday Bottle by Emmy Lovecolt.
I still love this fic.
Yeah, it's got some nice poetry things going
I
on,
was
in it,
gonna
which I
say,
like.
it's so prosaic and poetic and just some other nice words. And like, I feel like I never felt like I didn't understand what was going on. Like they said, you know, these characters are from another series, they're from this other story, which is on my list, but I haven't actually read it yet. But I never found myself thinking, okay, I don't get this. I assume I had to have read that story. Like, if I'd read the other story, maybe I would have gotten more from it, but I honestly, I never felt like, okay, I don't understand this. You know, the author is talking over my head or assuming I've read the other one, which I think can often be really, really hard to do when you're using, you know, someone else's characters and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I just love just the way they write is just so, it really does feel like a dream. It's just beautiful. I don't know, Raz, say some nice things.
I can't really say much more than you did because it's a really short story.
But you feel like I like the length of it because I think it doesn't outstay its welcome kind of thing. Like to me, it was exactly as long as it needed to be.
Yeah,
I don't know.
oh, yeah,
What about
definitely.
you?
It was as long as it needed to be, and it felt. I kind of felt like I was in an art gallery almost reading
Yeah.
it, which is weird to experience.
I was gonna say it's really strange, but it worked really well. And the final story, Hurricane Watch by Fahrenheit,
This
who
was a
has
good
really
story.
been like
This was
chewing up
great.
the ranks lately. It seems like
Yeah.
everybody's been mentioning this
I've
guy,
been seeing Fahrenheit everywhere all of a sudden for some reason.
but it's
and I guess
fantastic
this is
because
the
he's
reason.
really good. He just seems to kind of like appeared out of nowhere. Like I was almost when I first
Fahrenheit's a
started,
she, by the way.
apologies. I've never seen their gender mentioned. And it's
Check your privilege. Check your privilege,
I
Barrett.
checked out the blog
Excuse
because
me?
they seemed like an
I am
interesting
the
person.
token female alongside C squared. My privilege is
No,
fully
Plum's a
checked.
girl too now.
Wait, Plum's
Yeah.
when did it? Oh, jeez, I'm behind the
Oh,
times.
You missed
Still
there was a skirts blog a while back. Plum's a nice lady or something.
Oh,
Wonderful.
awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Man, we're
Well-
really fighting those gender equality laws. That's fantastic.
I know.
Thank you, short skirts and explosions.
What I was going to say was when Fahrenheit started turning up, there was a part of me that sort of wondered if it was somebody's alt. But honestly, I'm really skeptical. I think it is someone who's just really talented who, you know, has just managed to catch the right eyes, which is fantastic.
And yet they still only have 111 followers.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, people,
bad.
fix
Like,
this.
all
Oh.
the hype they've gotten from Ponky and Present Perfect and stuff, like they should. I feel like they should have more right now,
Don't let
just based on
jealousy
that.
get in the way of reading good words written.
Yeah,
down.
exactly. They're an amazing author, folks. Go and check their stuff out.
So anyway, their story.
Now that we're done pimping them.
This is an interesting one because it's about pre-Princess Equestria, which is something that a lot of people don't actually write about. And I'm happy to see that Fahrenheit actually tackled it. I think a lot more people could get some very juicy stories. Just, I mean, this who knows how much time before the princesses arrived where stuff was happening amongst the ponies. Obviously, stuff was happening for a long time before they got there.
Yeah.
And this actually happens. Well, it technically is just before the princesses arrive because it's about Commander Hurricane and Princess Platinum, after Equestria has already been discovered, but when the terrible winter is still going on, and so Princess Platinum is escorted by Commander Hurricane up to the top of this mountain where they're supposed to try to save the world. And this is an excellent character study. Like, not a whole lot happens, but there's a lot of really good interaction between Commander Hurricane, who is the he in this story, and Princess
Yeah.
Platinum,
Who is naturally a she.
who is a she. And from that, some people might assume that there's some sort of romantic component, but there isn't. This is purely two characters bouncing off of each other because Princess Platinum has a lot of barely restrained
Frustrations
anxiety.
and insecurities.
Yes. And Commander Hurricane, meanwhile, isn't helping because he's very sarcastic and, basically doesn't believe that Princess Platinum is useful for anything. And it's wonderful to watch them slowly get to know each other as they go up the mountain.
Yeah.
And even speaking as the token shipper of the group, even I have to admit that it is kind of refreshing to have a buddy adventure, male and female, but then not like setting this social expectation. Well, okay, I guess we have to ship them, or we have to include a romantic subplot. That there is that authorial choice to just completely forgo that and just have a adventure and not expectations.
Acknowledge that people of opposite gender can be friends without needing to sleep together.
Exactly.
Blasphemy.
You don't even read romance, Steve. Shut your face.
Yeah, what the hell? Like, I'm defending platonic relationships where it is. What bizarro universe is landed in?
Or he's gonna say the world has clearly turned upside down here.
C squared.
Oh, please never change, C. We love
Keeping
you.
you on your toes.
Yeah, Plum's a girl. Pav's not a shipper anymore. Everything is just going.
I don't know. We can say Pav's not a shipper.
Bob's
Yeah,
always shipping.
let's not go too extreme here. Baby steps.
Worldview, and that to me is the shock.
Good. I don't like it when my worldview is challenged. Pav, always be a shipper.
You heard it here first. Not because I want to, but because Red wants it. You know.
Yep. And come on, even if my tail is fluffier than his, that is a really fluffy tail, and there's no way you can say no to that tail.
I mean, if we had to rough fluffiness of tails, I mean, I would say it probably does go Red, then Ferret, then Jaxie, then you know, and further on down the list.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's because you haven't seen me when I'm really startled. My tail gets super fluffy.
True.
It's all good.
The real test is what happens when they get wet. Like, how much fluffiness is retained when they get soggy?
This is true. But it's also how soggy are we talking? I mean, is this like a light misting, or are we talking like falling into the ocean and swim out?
Tail, serious business.
Very. Always
I was
serious
just stalling because I thought you were going to say something good about the story.
story.
Raz.
What? Oh.
Jeez, Raz.
Sorry. I'm distracted. I'm coding right now.
Raz, stop coding. This is more important.
But my grades.
You knew the risks when you joined this podcast.
God damn it.
Hey, we grade each other here too, you know. It's not like our grades don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Horse words are very important.
Yeah. It's a good story. Go read it.
It's an awesome story. Go read it and go follow this author who really needs more attention because they are brilliant.
Her blogs are pretty cool too. I went through and read them.
Cool. I haven't
They're
yet.
funny. There are some funny stories that she tells in there.
Yeah, I would say I looked at one or two of them, but I haven't read them all yet. Anyway, we have an awesome author here tonight who we should really pay more attention to. Since Pav isn't good enough to let him, you know, share the same microphone.
Look, I offered that we could, you know, share a lap or, you know, share a love seat or something like that, and he's all just like, yeah, so.
Well,
Jeez, Jax.
Well, I mean, I don't know. The fact that we have separated and apparently the lighting of the room has shifted appropriately to put him in the nice warm orange light, and I'm in the menacing half shadow. I think it was just not meant to be.
I don't know. I'm sure you could bring it together and just have some kind of neutral light. I mean, maybe if you're lucky, you'll wind up like C and be hiding in the background.
Yes, that's. Oh, wow, that's menacing. I can just like see your slasher smile there, and the rest of your face is in darkness. Oh, that's creepy.
Anyway, Jaxie recently.
I don't know what you want me to do.
Huh?
What do you want me to do?
Put your lights on.
It is on.
Put on more lights.
Fine.
God.
Look, unless you're saying that you have an aura that sucks all light around you,
Well,
you
I'm
should
pretty sure
be
he's
able
not
to add
claiming
more
he's
illumination.
or Nightmare Moon, so that's clearly not the case.
Yeah, clearly.
Okay.
He's the Queen Mum. Get it right.
There we go. That's much better.
Happy?
Yes.
Yes.
I,
Oh,
I'm
and hey,
very happy.
Yam Goth. Yes, we are doing questions.
Yes, indeed.
There's
We will
the
answer
public
questions.
chat, which we're taking questions from.
Holy cow! I
Absolutely.
didn't
There's
realize
also,
how
you know,
many.
the forum thread.
I only just realized how many stories of Gaps I've read, and didn't know it was him.
I don't think I've read any of these.
What have you read?
Let's see. I'm going through your stories right now. I've read a few chapters of Siren Song. I read The Need for Sex Education, Arbitrage of Moments, a series of events, which was also really good. I read Intern, which was incredible. I read dressing room, deep cover, lies tell the children. Yeah,
I need to finish that.
and then it's like,
Well,
oh
Yes,
wow,
you
but
do.
I didn't connect that it was you and you until now.
So you can see why constantly I've been just completely fangasming over him.
And you can see why, we're constantly going, oh my god, he's amazing, go read his stuff. Your latest
all right.
I don't think I read any of Jaxie's things.
I would recommend
Shame
it.
on
He's
you.
a really good
Shame
author.
on you.
You
Yeah.
should feel guilty.
Yeah.
So your latest story is a change in 3 parts that has stirred up a heck of a lot of attention from people.
Yeah, all right. So since I don't know if everyone watching the podcast knows me, I guess I'll introduce myself.
It's a good policy.
Hello, everyone. I'm GAP Jaxie on
Also
Finpic.
known as the great and powerful Jaxie!
No, God, no, no.
Well, then what does it stand for? Because I'd like to point out it is a capital G, a lowercase a, and a capital P.
It stands. Look, Trixie was much cooler back in season 1. Okay.
Hipster Jax.
Things
run from your
went downhill. And if I had to summarize myself as a writer, magnum opus dissonance. Everything that I wanted to be great receives moderate attention, and everything that I just go, this, hardly even worth publishing, but whatever, I guess I'll toss it up there. Instant hit to the top of the fave box. And
Yes, the eternal struggle of authors everywhere.
Oh, yes.
You will notice that of all Jaxie's stories, the one that has the highest review count is regarding the need for sex education, which is a Twilestia ship fic, and if you read the short description of it,
It's all Pab's fault.
do you have that pulled up? You could read that short description for us.
it says a commission for Pav Vieira who gave me the prompt.
Wow,
I
Jaxie's
had
really
no
sold
choice.
himself out.
Forgive me. Yes. Okay, so I've written a few things. I got started with the fandom with a fic called I Forgot I Was There.
I remember when that came out.
I wrote as part of a bet with a friend as to which one of us could get 100 views on a fic first.
Well, specifically, that was Ether Echoes, author
Yes.
of Well by Reed.
Yes. So Ether Echoes and I both got involved in the fandom and in fan fiction. When Ether Echoes was talking about how much he wanted to be a writer, and I, being a good friend who would never mock another good friend, said, now you're gonna put your money where your mouth is, Mr. Fancy Writer. I bet I can get 100 views on fiction before you can. He has gone on to be a real writer, so good for him. But with me, I Forgot I Was There due to sheer dumb luck. It was terrible when it first came out. Hit the feature box and exploded on launch. And I was left going, well, now I feel like I need to do something with this. That is how I met Pav, first as an editor. And from there, I've gone on to write a few other things. There's already been a reference to my magnum opus, Siren Song, a few other things, which is an epic long fic. There's the Lies We Tell to Children, which is my look at Luna and Nightmare Moon and Twilight being mentored by Celestia.
There's
A few other
fan
philosophical pieces like Intern or Series of Events. And like Ferret said, the most recent one is a Change in 3 Parts, which is an allegorical story about technological change, which I believe has generated all of the hate in the comments.
Not hate, but a lot of discussion and debate. There has absolutely been hate in Flame War, but there's also been a lot of people genuinely interested in talking about it. Even though you set out to write the main character as an unrepentant sociopath and failed.
Dust is not an unrepentant sociopath.
That's how you described her to me, which is why I was so scared to read it for about a week.
That's because I told you her dialogue and you were traumatized. And I didn't know how to proceed from there.
So just to be clear, this character is not a sociopath. It's just that her dialogue is traumatizing.
For the second one, yes. For the sequel that he is writing, her dialogue is traumatizing. Because, oh my gosh, she sounds like a massive jerk. So I was really intimidated and like, oh my gosh, she sounds like a horrible character. Why would I want to read this? And then finally I worked up my nerve, read the first one, and went, she's actually a really caring, empathic human being. Sorry, Pony. Like, she cries at one point. Why did you tell me she was a sociopath? Because you did.
I mean, that's kind of her story role. Like, with the exception of mine going blank. I've only written one character ever who's supposed to be really irredeemably evil, and the name of the story he's in has somehow flown out of my head.
Arbitrage of Moments?
Yes, thank you. With the exception of TikTok from Arbitrage of Moments, I've never written a character I consider to be completely irredeemable.
And the whole reason you wrote that, I believe, was to prove that you could write a character who's completely irredeemable and still make people feel sorry for him?
Yes. So what happened was, in my magnum opus, Siren Song, the one I put all the effort into, Siren is somewhat abrasive, let us say. And I had an argument with one of my editors who finally got to the end of the book and said, so this is it, Siren has redeemed herself. Hello, Pav.
Yeah, see, this is why we're giving them a hard time. It's because they're literally in the same room, but they're not willing to share a camera and microphone.
No. No.
No,
yes. Yes, is somewhat abrasive. I had an argument with an editor when he finally got to the end of the book where he said, no, Siren is a good person because she's empathetic and the reader feels good for her and she feels, like a good pony, like someone you'd want to know. And I replied to him, no, that's not true. There are tricks I have employed to make her empathetic to the reader while she's still fundamentally a bad person. And we got into quite a lengthy argument about whether or not Siren was a good person. And at the end of it, I was so frustrated, I said, fine, I'll show you. I'm going to write a story where the main character is an irredeemable monster, and I will make you feel bad for him.
Did you succeed?
And that's where Arbitrage of Moments came from.
Yes, but the big question is, were you successful? Did your editor come back and go, you jerk, I feel really bad?
He didn't say he felt really bad, but he did come back and admit, in his words, because this is how Ether Echoes admits he's wrong, I keenly underestimated your talent for writing realistic psychopaths.
Now we need to drag him into the chat.
No, please. Oh, no. Please don't.
No.
I hope he's not listening or he'll kill me for that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Jax, I hate to break it to you, but we do record this.
You have just damned yourself,
Yeah.
my good sir.
No.
Oh, boy. Okay. That's not going to go well. Right.
You have my sympathies. Are there any last wishes?
But no, I mean, aside from that too, this was featured by the Royal Canton Library, so it got well received, I think, overall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, overall, I mean, what I try to do with each of my fan fiction is there's some sort of thesis or takeaway at the end. Like, some of them are more point pieces than others. Like, the most recent one, A Change in Three Parts, was written because I had a point I wanted to. Technological change is good. Or intern.
Monster, you mean you're trying to write fables?
Kind of. I mean, they're not all fables per se. Like,
I would be scared to find out what the lesson behind fan service was, I have to admit.
the lesson behind... Okay, there is one.
Why do I say these things? I always regret them.
Yes, giving me... Oh, you can see the look he's giving me right now. Okay.
Yes. Quite fascinating.
The lesson behind fan service was essentially that depth is not valuable for its own sake. Depth is, or like depth of character or things that we think make people deep and nuanced and interesting are significant only insofar as they cause other things to occur. They are not inherently valuable.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Also, it was just really funny to write.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
I figured it was a 50-50 shot. That was the lesson, and the other lesson was that as long as you have an amazing butt and puberty only occurs for 0.5 seconds, everything in life will be fine.
Well, that is also true, but I feel like that's not applicable to most of my user base.
Well, but I mean, speaking as someone with a fantastic butt, I mean, I could really.
I don't know. Aragon was pretty impressive. I don't think you're quite up to his level.
Oh.
Mm.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's other things, like I'm actually scrolling through the list of my own fan fiction right now because I don't remember half of them.
You narcissist.
Like you've never done it.
Yeah, I do.
I don't think Ferret has done
My
that.
non-existent stories. Oh, I take it back. I wrote one thing for Horizons, never the final word, which isn't even on my page. So no, actually, I don't.
Well, then I request to be judged by someone more hypocritical than you.
I have never done.
I'll gladly take that spot. I
Yeah,
scroll
I will too.
All right.
all the time.
Squirrel will redeem you.
I mean, I've done a few other things, like a commission piece for SIG, well, a Christmas commission, called Love Letters for a Girl I Hate, which was a crossover with Skyrim.
Which was hilarious because I remember hearing you complain about how much you disliked it.
So one year, I unwisely decided to give Fix as Christmas gifts, just to say that, you know, Sig, you're in Japan, I can't really ship you any physical item, and I know you don't have time to play online games. So, you know, up to 10,000 words, any fanfic you want, any topic at all, I will write your dream fic for you.
I'd like to point out, when he says give Fix as Christmas gifts, he means give one person a fic as a Christmas gift. This was not he went to all his friends and said he'd write them stories.
I gave one to Pav too, but
Fair enough. My point still stands. It was not to everybody. It was to a very small number, which is why, you know, you're still sane and not locked up in an asylum.
that is fair. But Sig, without hesitation, said, I want an MLP Skyrim crossover. I said, I've never played Skyrim, and his response is, that's okay, it's on Steam. It's not too expensive. You can go get it right now.
Because he's written one of the few
So there
Skyrim
goes your
crossovers.
commission money.
Yeah. So I went and got Skyrim and played it for a few hours, and then drafted a fic about it, and it wasn't really all that good.
And then
so-
came to all his friends complaining.
Yes, I did go to every friend complaining, but not all of them at once. I went to them in sequence.
Yes.
I wrote a
he had
draft and
specific
complained to
list
Pav,
order.
then played more Skyrim and wrote a draft and complained to Ferret, then played more Skyrim and wrote a draft and complained to Pascoite, and so on and
Yep.
so forth.
It was very
Until
effective
finally one day I just
showing,
went,
you know, where in the hierarchy of your friendship we stood, in terms of in order of how you complained to us. It was okay. I'm this important because it came to me before this person.
pretty much until it's starting to know it.
Well, and also you've got like the aspect of you know, the editing process through a lot of his fics that, you know, he does have, you know, a kind of waterfall method that he will send, you know, fic to fic to fic, or you know, send one fic from reviewer to reviewer, and so
Yeah.
you know, finding out where you fall in that chain is kind of interesting sometimes.
It is quite intriguing, especially because, I mean, he often will go, all right, I hate this story, I'm throwing it all out and starting from scratch.
Yeah,
So
okay,
it's interesting to see which version of the fic you end up reading.
so my editing process is this. First, I write a draft, and then read through it myself, and usually at this point I will end up throwing the draft away entirely. I will just scrap the entire story and start over because I'm not happy with it.
It doesn't matter if it's 30,000 words, he'll still throw it all out.
Yeah, I'll
It's
go
okay,
through it.
give everyone a second so they can pull their jaws off the floor.
No, it's worse than that. But then
Much worse.
it gets worse than that. So then Warmblood looks at it for a first impressions. He doesn't do detailed editing. It's just I read through it, and at the end of the story, these are the emotions I experienced. Then ADD, A Dragon Dreaming, looks at it. He's not editing for writing style. He doesn't talk much about that, but he is very good at picking out plot holes and character voice and other inconsistencies in the story. And I will make then pretty extensive changes based on that. Then Pav looks at it and does the first really in-depth edit, where I will, again, usually make pretty substantive changes. And finally, Pascoite looks at it to really go through it with a fine-tooth comb and get it ready for publication.
Because
The
if it
record-
weren't for his adorable son, I would be convinced that Pascoid is just a grammar robot.
Yeah, he's really good at it. It's really
And usually at some point in there, I'll occasionally look at stuff and sort of do editing and also just comment about tone and whatnot. But thankfully, I have yet to actually be sucked into the actual process, so I get to slack off a lot.
I'm sure some people are wondering, how were you lucky enough to get 4, sometimes 5 people to consistently edit at such a deep level?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that I have powers of beguilement that I can stare into the eyes of mortals and entrap their souls.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Seriously, Pascoite approached. Mute your mic, thank you. Pascoite approached me after my first fic. I forgot I was there. I went on to the training grounds, which were more active at the time, because essentially I've been told by a few people on FimFic, you kind of suck. Which I did. Totally fair. Went on to the training grounds, posted my story up for review. Pascoite was the first editor to take it. He read it, and his summary at the time was, "You suck." And he left a bunch of detailed comments. What happened after that point was just I read his feedback in great detail and made a bunch of corrections, and with the next chapter I sent him did not make the same mistakes twice, which for him was apparently pretty rare.
Unfortunately, yes. A lot of people tend to look at the first feedback and go, "Oh my God, this is garbage. I will just throw it out and start from scratch and make the exact same mistakes," rather than actually trying to fix things.
And especially, I mean, you can hear me. I'm muted myself. So
No, but we can hear you exactly as much.
All right. So yeah. So with Pascoite, like he is very, and you can talk to this as well. Just very detailed, very digs into it a lot. And so if you get that, and especially if you're a very green writer, you can look at that and be like, "Oh God, I'm never going to do this again."
Yeah, Pasco does have an unfortunate tendency to be very rough and very blunt. And I mean, he honestly doesn't mean to be. He just tends to be very straightforward, and he will really exhaustively go through a story, which Pav's right. If you've never written much before, it can be really intimidating to have somebody like take it apart on such a deep level.
Well, and that's what I really like about him as an editor. That's also why he goes last. Because his reviews take a very long time, and I do not want him to go through all that effort only for me to throw it away, rewrite it, and say, now do it again.
Yeah. Because he won't stay editing for you if you do that too much.
Yeah. Pav, I also met through the training grounds, and we just sort of bonded over that. We've become friends since. He has a very different editing style from Pascoite.
And that was because we both found you over I Forgot I Was There.
Yeah.
And I don't know what drew Pascoite into that, if he just, saw it on the Comic queue. I saw it and I'm just like, holy crap, there's 2 Twilights and they're probably going to kiss each other, so I wanted to review this.
And we're so disappointed.
And that's how friendship was made.
Shipping will solve all your problems, kids.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a really extensive editorial process because I often feel that my first drafts are bad, or more to the point, for me to get a feel for the character. I'm a very intuitive writer. Like, for instance, there's a lot of things like other than tenses, I don't know most of the rules of grammar. I can intuitively look at a sentence and explain if it's right or wrong, but I usually can't tell you why. Or like if you asked me to define what a run-on sentence is, I couldn't tell you. Earlier today, I had to Google what a run-on sentence is. I just look at sentences and know that's too long. Which means that very frequently writing a story, I have to write a character to get an idea of their voice. Because I'll write them and just look at them and go, that's not their voice. And do it again and do it again until the voice is right.
I'm kind of the same way. Don't really understand the rules of writing, but you just have a feeling for what sounds right and what doesn't, and you work your way from there.
On the topic of finding a character's voice, Siren Song Chapter 1.
Okay, so there is this fic by Aqua called Harmony. It is a crossover with Bioshock and MLP.
He needs to finish it, by the way.
What?
He knows.
Yep. Overall, it is very good.
In England about it.
Do recommend. Wait, what? I think I missed something.
What did you miss?
Is he watching the stream?
No.
No?
He sometimes does, but I don't think he is right now.
Okay.
No, he's away.
Yeah.
He's in England, Jax. He's probably asleep right now.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so he wrote this Bioshock MLP crossover called Harmony. Overall, very good. Do recommend. But there's a bit in it where he has the little sisters, who are these little children who wander around the city collecting Adam, which is goo from dead people. Now,
Except,
in the
they basically have a Norman Rockwell view. I think everyone's probably knows the game well enough at this point to get it.
for those who don't, who may be amongst our
No,
listeners,
you're supposed to shame them into playing the game, Jax. Don't help them.
All right, fine. Fine. So in the game, they have this long needle for collecting Adam, and in the story,
It's like a Spinal Tap, isn't it?
yes, whatever. It's a big needle. I don't know what they do with it.
Sorry.
And in the game, in his fic rather, Aqua mentions that little sisters are all unicorns. And my first thought was, that makes sense, because unicorns have horns, and little sisters use a long needle-like device. So clearly what he's going to do here is there are going to be little unicorn fillies with unusually sharp horns, and that's how he's going to preserve the horror of the setting. And instead there's little unicorn fillies who carry around needles. And I just looked at that world building and said, no. I am so offended by that. You did not do this correctly. I'm going to write my own better Bioshock crossover fic, and I'll show you.
Blackjack and hookers.
Yes.
Yes. We actually there was one fic where you almost included OC's names like Blackjack.
Oh, Blackjack and I have a short fic up where Rainbow Dash goes to found her own version of the Wonder Vaults with the assistance of two other Pegasi named Blackjack and Hookers. But yes. So I started writing Siren Song, this crossover, and in the original version of it, Siren was this sort of upright, noble, defender of all that is good and pure type. And I wrote it, and it was a decent introduction. I sent it off to the pre-readers, and it came back, it's boring. I said, what's wrong with it? It's boring. Right, why is it boring? It's boring. Okay, I'll drama it up, I guess.
Those are the hardest stories to deal with. Sort of like your intuitive understanding of grammar. We intuitively know it's boring, but it's really hard to articulate why.
Yep. So
Also, I
with
wasn't
this
writing
one
the pre-readers
pre-reader,
back then. They were bigger jerks.
well, no, so the pre-reader in question was actually really nice because in his email back to me, he mentioned he was on Equestrian Study on Canternet, and he was around if I wanted to ask more detailed questions, which was really nice of him. Hence how we got into this exchange of what's wrong with it, it's boring. What's wrong with it, it's boring. Fine, I'll action it up. I go and I rewrite it to have a much more over-the-top action scene. Go back, he goes, that's way better action. So is it better? No, it's still boring. Go back and I change the order of the scenes. I go back and change I change everything, and every time it comes back, it's just boring.
Each of these drafts is like 10K.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not talking like a short little description.
Yeah. So finally, it's 2 in the morning. I'm getting incredibly pissed off with this pre-reader, and I just say, look, you are not helping me. You've told me it's boring, but that's not enough. I need specific feedback. And he says, Siren's just not awesome enough. And I get, that does not make me less pissed off. I say, fine. And I write a version of the story where Siren can't shut the fuck up about how awesome she is. With every other line, she talks about how amazing and great she is. Submitted it, and it came back, this was fantastic. That is the voice of Siren. Keep writing her this way. And that
he's
is
not really exaggerating. It really is almost every other line.
Yep, and that is where Siren's song comes from. So after that, I spent a while. I didn't actually submit the story at that point. I spent several days just looking at that and trying to figure out why he liked it. It's like, what makes this character interesting? And eventually managed to go back and figure it out, and it worked out pretty well.
And what did you figure
out? So the problem with the first one is that it's sort of played to expectations. It's an action hero setting, and Siren is clearly an action hero. So, like, it's dramatic, sure, and the descriptions are nice, but the chapter is basically one long choreographed fight scene. And in text, that doesn't come across terribly well. the siren who can't shut the hell up about how awesome she is. The juxtaposition between her talking about how great she is and the fact that the descriptions clearly portray she is not that great. Make her come across as delusional or arrogant or narcissistic or all of these other traits you don't expect to see in a character who's in the middle of an action scene. And it made her stand out more. Now, I did rewrite that entire section again to take into account Siren's new character, but it worked out really well. And that is, Siren's turned out to be one of the best OCs I've ever written. That story, by the way, Siren Song, holds the records for most time I have ever rewritten a chapter. With Chapter 1 of Daring Do, which
is the second book.
Second book, yeah. Which at 22K was rewritten entirely from scratch 10 times. I wrote over 200,000 words of that one chapter.
My gosh, how did you
And
not?
threw out every single one, except the
How
last.
did you not throw yourself or your computer out of a window?
So what happened with that one was a little different. Because charitably, like with all due humility, with the ending of Book 1, I knocked it out of the park. The ending of Book 1 of Siren Song turned out way better than I thought it was going to, and a lot of the readers were saying things like 10 out of 10, fantastic, etc. Which gave me a little performance pressure for Book 2.
No pressure.
That I'm not saying the standards are high, but if this book literally does not reduce me to tears in the first 2 pages, I'm going to call it a day. So I wrote the first chapter, sent it to my editors, and they said it was fine. And I looked at it and said, I don't think it's fine. And
Because you have to realize, to Jaxie, the word fine is like waving a red flag at a bull.
It really is.
You say
and the worst
fine,
part of
and
it,
he hears completely unacceptable.
yeah, anything other than stupendous is a waste of time. So I sent it off to my editors, and on the 9th repetition, like Ferret said, they're getting a little pissy with me, of saying, I have reviewed this chapter 9 times. Every time I said it was fine, I am not going to review it again. I said, okay,
This is
please
where
just
you
give
can
me...
tell that they didn't understand Jaxie very well. But they're still good people.
And I said, please, I understand I'm wearing out your patience. Just give me one last time, the 10th repetition, and I promise if this one is not substantively better, I'll just go with the first one like you initially said. I said, fine, one more repetition. Spent a long time thinking about it, totally redo it, write number 10, submit it in, and ADD comes back with, I totally see what you were getting at. This one is way better than the other 9. You should go with this. My response is, why would you do that? Now I'm going to rewrite it this many times every time. You ruined me.
You are reinforcing bad behavior. Stop it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you haven't rewritten anything 9 times, so maybe it didn't quite take.
I actually have several things, actually.
Well, then it doesn't exactly hold your record now, does it?
Well, that's the longest thing I've ever written that much. 220,000 words of a single chapter is a lot.
Fair enough.
They were not published.
They were not published, yeah. I've joked before that if I ever do a Bioshock Infinite crossover with alternate universes, the alternate universes are going to consist of the 9 alternate versions of that chapter I wrote.
You know there are going to be a
It
million
took
people
me like
going, what were they like?
it took me like let's see, 2 years to write 200,000 words in my little metro.
Which you should write more of, because I miss its world.
That just makes me feel bad.
That's
You should.
Everyone says that they miss it, and I'm like, but I have all this other stuff that I'm writing. And
Which is also awesome, but Metro is awesome too.
It is.
But so thank you. We just need a numeric scale of awesomeness so that I can rank which stories to work on.
Just work on all of them all the time and quit your day job to the exclusivity of Poundyfic.
A serious Patreon.
Do what I did and throw yourself into a position where you have to write.
That was life advice from Gap Jaxie. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Also, I thought the position where he had to write was me looking at him and giving really sad expression.
I've learned how to combat that with throwing you ferret gifts.
That's because you
So
haven't
it kind
seen
of
me
doesn't
in a
really work on me
Skype
anymore.
call. That will come in a video call.
See, I used to,
Expression. And you will be powerless.
see,
And will write, and it will be good.
oh. I don't know.
Well, Raz
That
owes
hasn't
me a
gotten
couple
more a
things,
series of
so-
events written.
Yes. But you've explained the order you're writing things, which is why I'm giving you. I haven't been harassing you about it.
Yes, the order is whatever will please my fans the least, or frustrate them the most, whichever is funnier.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah,
I know, but I
generally.
mean, my order is usually I write 1 day a week. On that day, I do nothing but write. I get up in the morning and start writing, and then when it's like 11 o'clock, I'm done. I will usually get 10 to 18,000 words done during that period, less if it's the first time I'm drafting. If it's like the first time I'm writing a fic, I'll probably only get about 8,000 words done in that time.
Only.
I would like to point out that there are probably quite a lot of authors who are listening to this or who will listen to this and are grinding their teeth at only 8,000 words in
Yes,
a day.
but if I throw them out 10 times, then in the net addition, it's only worth one-tenth as much. So I only get like 800 words
I
done.
still feel like there are authors who are still probably annoyed at you for only getting 800 words.
I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are plenty of authors who go, I wrote 50 words today and I actually feel pretty good.
I write for 12 hours a day. 50 words a day for 12 hours of work is not a reasonable return on investment.
Oh, sure, now we're bringing money into these things. Jeez, Jax.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Sully
That's
purity
actually,
of art.
that's actually something that's I won't say bug me, but there are writers like Colden Gardez or Ether Echoes who have that sort of artistic mindset of just I have the perfect vision of the story in my head and I sit down and I write it and then I hit publish and I'm done. And I am Edison to their Tesla in that I have a very brute force industrial approach and I'm secretly evil.
And you're stealing all their ideas.
And you're in love with a bandit?
Actually, all of my really successful stories have been ripped off other people's ideas. I have a Trello folder called Ideas to Rip Off.
So you really are right.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm opening that folder right now.
I want to hear some of the things that are in
Oh
it.
boy.
Ponyfic folder, Ideas to Rip Off. Okay, let's see. There's a fic called Not an Adult about Twilight realizing that she will never have to become a quote-unquote mature adult in the same way as her friends as a result of being a princess and having her every whim taken care of, prompting an existential crisis. I loved the idea, but I didn't love the execution, so I'm definitely going to rip that off. Pat suggested a two girls crossover once, and then the night after he suggested it, I had insomnia and actually went and read transcripts of the show and wrote up the crossover, and it looks like it would work surprisingly well.
I think we came up with that idea in
Yeah,
one of
that
your
was
streams.
us.
Yeah,
We were looking
okay.
up two broke girls fan fiction.
Yeah, well, I'm going to write that one
We
down.
deliberately told Paul.
I remember
to tell you
that.
to write
Oh
it.
god.
That was great.
I'm so sorry.
No,
Sid
you're not.
suggested, based on some of his DeviantArt stuff, a fic based on an Alicorn nature documentary where a Griffin camera crew tries to follow Twilight around because she's an endangered species.
It totally is, guys.
Yeah. Based on Ether Echo's work, he half-finished a fic in which alicorns are made by merging three ponies together, one of each race. So I'm going to rip that off for a fic where Luna and Celestia give the big reveal. That one doesn't count. That's actually an original idea.
Then why is it in your two reports?
I actually wrote that one. From EE, rip-off idea. Pony gains the power to change race at will. I wrote that.
Yes.
Check that off the list.
Hooray.
And another fic called The Lotus Eaters. I'm going to rip that off.
Yes.
I read that.
I actually
I
think
have
I
that
read
one.
later for older.
People should go find that fic and read it. Lotus
Yes.
Eaters.
I'm pretty sure it was recommended in Seattle's Angels.
Yeah, I think I was on that round even.
Yeah. Actually, now that I look over this list, I think I may just be using you guys as a who's who guide of people to rob and otherwise steal from.
That's okay. Alex basically uses us as a story idea to write when he's writing.
That's
But
fair.
to be
Except
fair, I
he's
think
not
that's mostly
writing
because
anymore.
everybody harasses him until he does it.
Jaxie, you're echoing again.
Oh,
Whoops.
And now he muted himself.
Well,
And now
I
they're
mean,
both
what else
muted.
was he gonna do?
The problem is Google Hangout doesn't really show your icon unless you're talking. You
yes. Okay.
Your gesticulations aren't showing up as well.
Let me think. What else?
What else is on your rip-off list?
See, that's the end of the rip-off list. Now we get into the original ideas list. There's a bunch of ideas here I know I'm probably never going to write just because I already have 3 long fics that are in progress, each of which is going to be about 200,000 words. So we'll probably never get to these long.
Alright, so there's a question for you. Do you
Yeah.
find that you tend to actually stick to the word limit you laid out? Like if you say, okay, I'm going to write this story and it's probably going to be about 50,000 words. Is it actually 50,000 words? Like, do you find that you know you're writing well enough you can gauge to that? Or do you try and stick to it? Or you're just kind of, you approximate it, and if you get close to that number, yay, you win a cookie.
Not even that much. I just write it, and when it's done, I go back and length check it. And that has led to, like, let me put it this way. So the Vision series, which right now is at 300,000 words and running and is going to be 3 books when it's done, was originally supposed to be a 150,000 word short novel.
There was
Wow.
the running joke from one of the reviewers. I forget, was it EE or someone like that? But the joke was that if Siren was trying to cross the living room, it would take 50,000 words, and she would almost die twice.
Yeah, that sounds about right, actually.
Sounds like Siren.
One problem I have as a writer, is I love going into the little details. I love including elements in a story that don't necessarily add anything to the narrative, but they add verisimilitude. So, like, as an example of that, the Siren Song series takes place in Vision, this underwater city. And there's a bunch of stuff I have in the setting Bible about how Vision works as a city, like what is it like, what is the day of an average citizen there like, how does the power structure work, how does the utilities and energy work, how does the infrastructure work, what are the important, like, if I was born in this city, what am I called, all of that. Most of it will here in the story and doesn't matter to anything. But to me it is important to know because it makes the world feel more cohesive. And it lets me add little background details. And on the one hand, I think this does improve the quality of the story pretty significantly because readers notice that there are lots of little details in the background, but they seem to be consistent with each other and paint an interesting picture. But on the other hand, it does mean my descriptions and stories can get ridiculously long very quickly.
And unfortunately, you have authors like you have readers like me who love that stuff who just encourage you.
Yep.
And will complain if he tries to cut stuff out.
Yep. Dialogue, particularly. A huge pet peeve for me is story dialogue. Like a classic example is that thing, like the other thing they do in movies where they finish up a phone conversation and then just hang up the phone immediately. Every time, like, there's no goodbye, they just hang up. Every time I see that, it's like eye twitch develops slightly. That good dialogue is really important. Good dialogue is really important to me, and good dialogue is realistic dialogue to an extent. So what that means is when I write characters' dialogue, there's a lot of ums and uhs and pauses, and they talk over each other or repeat words or say things that aren't grammatically correct, which I think adds a lot to the characters, but it also means their dialogue goes on forever.
So basically what you're saying is you don't really write characters who dislike talking.
I do.
You should write a story about the pets then going on a wacky adventure.
No, God, no. No, I will
Write about
never do-
Angel Bunny!
No, I have mixed feelings about Angel Bunny, but he's
Why
not
for?
getting his own story from me. Because on the one hand, he is clearly a simile for Fluttershy's abusive boyfriend, which is hilarious. On the other hand, he's a simile for Fluttershy's abusive boyfriend, which makes me want to skin him.
Yeah, I can understand that. I have to admit, having, understanding of abusive relationships and stuff, the first time I kind of started seeing Angel pulling his shtick, I was just kind of like, I'm really not okay with what this is telling little girls. But I'm overthinking it, so that's fine.
Yep. What else?
Do we have any questions from the comment section?
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, haven't you guys been watching the chat?
Yeah.
No.
People
I
keep
can't
people
watch
keep
the
saying people keep saying things like, "Is that Jaxie?"
Say, witness your doom.
I'm sorry. What was that about witnessing my doom?
Someone is asking, Gabriel is asking Ferret to say, witness your doom. With the echo.
Okay, Jaxie, mute your mic. Red, try it again.
Witness your doom. There's no echo.
Well, there was something about somebody was saying.
Yeah.
Witness my doom is what I heard
Arjonix asks Jaxie, "Are you concerned about the realization that Arjonix likes you?"
No. I don't.
Arch does love you very passionately. He wants to make sure you know that.
I'm quoting him. He's like, "Jaxie, love me, please."
I don't know how to answer that. That's no.
Arch pauses in the room, so I'm sorry.
Oh, are there other questions?
That don't involve unrequited.
Not really, no.
Whoa. Let's not be overly restrictive here. Let's just. Are there other questions in general?
It doesn't look like.
Harsh. Alright, well, I have some questions about your story of change in 3 parts.
Okay.
So you said your attitude is that technological change is beneficial. So were you really trying to bring that across in the story? Like, what sort of difficulties did you run into sort of trying to show the differing opinions without making it too preachy and making dust too much of an XP?
So basically my goal in writing the story was this. So the thesis of A Change in 3 Parts is technology is good. That is what I want the reader to get out of it. That's sort of the Aesop at the end of this fable. The tricky part of that is there are very few people in the world who will disagree with that statement explicitly. There are not many people who will say they think technological change is bad. There are more people who will say, I think technological change is good, but, and then apply a qualifier to that. So that's more what I'm missing. So in writing the story, I just say I can't make a straw man argument because a straw man argument, like even if it wasn't bad writing, just won't be effective. It will not accomplish what I want to accomplish. So in setting this up, I basically went with my goal here is that both sides need to make the best possible argument. To the point that in the second chapter, the audience should not know what my position on the issue is. And the third chapter will sort of hint that out and will explain why I think the answer is what it is. But for the first 2 chapters, the audience should get a fair and unbiased recording. And I think that worked out pretty well. There's, like you said, a lot of discussion in the comments, also a lot of flame wars. But for the most part, the comments do seem to be running more or less down the lines I thought. It looks like the point of the story pretty much sunk in the way I thought it would. So I'm pretty happy with the outcome. The decision to make Dust the main character abrasive, shall we say. She's not really a jackass because she doesn't mean anyone any harm. She's in some ways based on a kid I knew when I was younger who was mildly autistic. In that he was a really nice guy. He just had no sense whatsoever of social norms and was not afraid to speak his mind. So, like, for instance, there was one discussion that kid and I had when we were young. We were arguing about what we were going to do. I wanted to go outside. He wanted to play Magic the Gathering, where he just said, well, I can sit here and work on my Magic deck on my own and be perfectly happy with that, but you need a companion to go outside and have fun. So since if we don't come to an agreement, I get what I want, I have the superior negotiating position, so we're going to do what I want. And
this is so informative of your childhood.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like that really says a lot about how you grew up.
I should mention, this kid was my only friend from ages 12 to 17.
I repeat my statement.
Yes. Anyway, but that is the sort of quote-unquote asshole Dust is. She doesn't mean anybody any harm. And she's even nice at moments, as Ferret pointed out. But she has no sense of social graces, and she is willing to state the situation very bluntly. I made her that way for two reasons. First, because I wanted to keep the fic short. So I wanted a character who can just say the point instead of having to tap dance around it. The second reason was one common criticism I see leveled against technology indirectly is, but the guy who made it is an asshole. Which I obviously think is not a valid argument, but it's a very common. So to address it, I wanted the originator of the technology in the fic to be personally very abrasive, so that Rainbow Dash's objection of "we can't trust this pony, she's a jackass" will seem as valid as it can seem. So yes.
Fair enough. Were you worried at all about, when you were writing the story, that because of the fact that he has a very polarizing opinion, were you kind of concerned about how people were going to react to it? I mean, I can't imagine you were excessively worried about people going, "Oh my God, I hate you, I'm unfollowing you," but just that it might bring up difficult discussions personally with people kind of going, "Oh, okay, this is how you feel," and also the worry that because you are stating your opinions, that people might sort of look at this and go, basically meant to be like the chicken message for you.
Yes and no. Like, was I aware that was a possibility? Yeah, but it didn't really bother me. I'm a transhumanist, and beyond that, a big believer in technology in general. And as Pav can attest, I very strongly believe what I believe. I am.
Can you possibly give a brief explanation of what transhumanism is, since a lot of people may not know?
Yes, yes, I can.
This is actually a huge topic of, you mentioned one of his reviewers, ADD. You got into like a 4-hour discussion with him about this?
Yeah, so one thing that's frustrated me in the past is that transhumanism is big and complicated, and I do not have a succinct way to explain it. And in a 4-hour-long talk with one of my reviewers last night named A Dragon Dreaming, we sorted that out and worked out. I found a succinct way of saying it. And finished up the chat with him. Pav came back, and the first thing I did when Pav walked in is basically grab him and shake him and shout, "Pav, I've had a revelation. I have seen the future. Now sit down and prepare to write down everything I say."
All right, so what is your succinct and concise definition of transhumanism?
Okay, my concise definition of transhumanism is this. Looking at the long scope of history, like looking all the way back, I believe that our technology has given us things that are not merely what we had back then, only better and cheaper, and we can watch YouTube videos while doing them. We have actually created things that were not available. Like, our society is not just Athens, only with cooler toys. There are parts of being human and the essential part of the human experience now that did not exist back then. And I would say that since we don't live at the apex of human society, if you flip that forward and say 1,000 years from now, the face of humanity will be totally different from what it is now, and we will have created a bunch of wonderful, amazing, positive things then that now we cannot understand any more than someone in Athens could have understood the internet.
Flipping through the comment section. Sorry for the interruption. But flipping through the comment section here, it seems like a lot of the tenseness that people have about this story is that they believe that this is something that you're saying about the show rather than life itself. Do you ever? How often do those two intersect? I guess I would ask.
So there's a fic I once wrote called Twilight Sparkle versus Social Inequality.
Well,
I was really hoping you were going to bring that one up.
Oh, this sounds like a disaster.
Okay. So
as much as A Change in 3 Parts has lingered in the feature box for a couple of days, Twilight Sparkle versus Social Inequality was a flame war that stayed at the top of the feature box for like a week and a half.
Yeah.
It really did. It was kind of amazing.
So Twilight Sparkle versus Social Inequality, the basic premise is Twilight discovers that she is the princess of friendship due to nepotism. and that in fact the equestrian system is very cliquish and corrupt. Not corrupt in the sense of like bribes under the table, but just, well, you know, I'm best friends with Twilight Sparkle, who is the Princess of Friendship, who is a student of Princess Celestia, who controls the treasury, so of course Rarity gets commissions for dressmaking for the gala every year, that sort of thing. Twilight is horrified to discover that she is part of a corrupt system that oppresses the common pony, and vows that she will no longer have anything to do with it. She will make her own way in the world and will not allow this to happen any longer. And a week later, when she discovers she's not even qualified to be a waiter and is in prison, she gives up and just says, you know what, forget it, corruption is awesome. I'm just going to go enjoy those perks. And you know what? If the guilt gets to me, there's lots of perks, so I can smother that guilt to death.
It's basically one of those, money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you a lot of things to make you forget about it.
Yes.
It can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you the things that give you happiness.
Or you can rent it for a few hours.
And that got a lot of hate, because a lot of people thought I was implying, it struck a little too close to camp, that some people didn't realize it was parody. And in general, the way I feel about the show is the show itself is in many ways meant to be a somewhat more angelic XP of real life. That, like, for instance, ponies and their cutie marks, it can be taken as like a clear analogy for puberty, that you have this moment when you become an adult, but it can also more generally be taken as a kind of idealized version of many people's search for meaning. That many humans spend their entire lives searching for what they're meant to do and never find it. And ponies are luckier that when they just turn a certain age, when it's time for them to be an adult, the light shines out of the sky and a tattoo appears on their butt saying, you were meant to be a hairstylist. Are you sure? Yes. Okay. Well then.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's... And that trend sort of continues. There's a lot of things in the show that can be taken as metaphorical or allegorical, like the latest episode with Rainbow Dash and Tank going into hibernation. Can be seen as allegory for death. And that's what I try to preserve in my writing to the greatest possible extent. That obviously in fan fiction, since we're exploring more complicated themes, the universe will get a little bit more complicated. But as much as possible, trying to use the equestrian setting as a very clear equine metaphor for the human condition in the real world. So in Twilight Sparkle versus Social Inequality, I'm not actually saying that Equestria is ruled by a clique of princesses' best friends. It's a show-appropriate analog for basically networking. For saying, I went to an Ivy League school, so I know the right people, or my dad's rich, so I know this, and that. Or like with A Change in Three Parts, Dust's magical ritual that allows ponies to change races is meant to be metaphorical for technological change. That it gives you some ability you did not previously possess. And it goes from there.
And I think in both of these cases, then, people have really taken the argument at face value and saying, oh, well, you're saying that Princess Celestia is really, like narrowing her views and only invites friends of friends, and you are so wrong that there's true friendship in the show, and I wouldn't say that you really disagree with that. As far as the canon show is going, you're just continuing the metaphor, basically.
I'm taking it to a fairly logical extreme.
Yeah, it's sort of like one thing I did back in season 1 of the show is I would make a lot of fun of Equestria for being a racial hierarchy. That Earth ponies do all of the manual labor, and Pegasi do weather work and implied due to their martial history, military stuff, and unicorns seem to all be nobility or wizards, with Celestia sitting on top. And like when I was making fun of that, like, do I seriously think the show is portraying a world with a distinct racial hierarchy? No, obviously not. I'm just sort of making fun of the fact that because there's a limited number of background ponies, the writers tend to reuse certain roles in what they're doing in the background. And future seasons of the show were actually really good about mixing that.
Yeah.
But it was a fun thing to make fun of, and it was a decent allegory for some people.
So there's a question for you, actually. Speaking of, the light shines out of the sky and the cutie mark tells you what to do. does your opinion of that sort of change with, the latest episode with Troubleshoot misinterpreting his cutie mark? Like, do you think that's something that is actually a common occurrence in the world where, yes, they get this magical tattoo?
Don't mention the Troubleshoes episode.
Too late, I've mentioned it.
I did not like that episode. I did not.
Please tell us why.
So for two reasons. First, his special talent isn't a talent, and second, it isn't special.
You could also argue that main styling isn't special or a talent. It's a learned skill.
So here's the difference, I would say. So throughout the show, a cutie mark is described as your special talent and your destiny. But I think the second one is more important than the first one, because we have seen ponies who are not always terribly good at what they're doing. Like Trixie is not a great stage magician, to be perfectly honest. But it's clear from what we see of her in the show that whether she's good at it or not, she enjoys it. It is what she is meant to do. It is what makes her happy and what she wants to do with her life. And that's what matters more. So like if you want to have a character like Babs Seed, for instance, who you say your special talent is unremarkable, it's hairstyling. Or even with the Apple family. You could say to Applejack, congratulations, your cutie mark is being an apple farmer, just like, your 50 immediate cousins aren't you special. But that doesn't matter. It's what makes Applejack happy in life, it's what gives her a sense of existential satisfaction, and that's good enough. That is what it is a metaphor for finding your purpose in life. With Troubleshoes, here's where you have the two problems. First, it doesn't make him happy. He doesn't discover his special talent when he does a great routine. For him, getting his cutie mark was a moment of shame. He was surrounded by ponies who were laughing at him, and he just ran a recluse as a result. That is, the metaphor just does not work for how you discover your special talent. It's not unique to him. And second, it's not a talent. Like, they say, oh, you can, do the whole rodeo clown thing. Like, I'm not saying rodeo clowning is advanced skilled labor, but they are not just there being clumsy. It is a specific skill set. And more generally,
it is kind of advanced skilled talent because you have to know a routine and avoid the big angry bull.
Yeah.
But obviously ponies don't have big angry bulls.
Yeah. But I mean, even beyond that, in general, when you're performing, to look clumsy in a performance, you have to actually be fairly agile. So Troubleshoes being clumsy does not make him a good rodeo clown, except that one time. Like the one time he's klutzing up and messing up the routine and making a mess of himself, ponies laugh. The 12th time, not so much. For him to be a sustainable rodeo clown, he can't just be clumsy. So his special talent isn't special, and it's not a talent. And also, the episode was bad. So...
Yeah, it was a
I
pretty
don't
bad
know.
episode.
I feel like there are a lot of people who sort of had one thing they're good at and made a career out of it.
I think that's what the episode was going for, but it just wasn't presented as well as it could have been.
Yeah.
The only moment in that episode I liked was when the Applejack Best Background Pony gagged with a cannon. They're going, hey,
Trophy.
Hey, Apple Bloom, look at your big sis, eh? Eh.
That was the only hilarious part. That's the only part about the episode I actually liked.
Oh, I love that joke.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part about stranger danger.
Yeah, that was also bad. Also, isn't Appaloosa in the middle of plains? How did they get into a dark forest?
With lots of rain.
I'm assuming they're on the edge.
Yeah, that was kind of my take. You're kind of on the edge of...
But then that raises the question of why they have to take a train out to a remote place.
Well, there's also the question of why Troubleshoes couldn't just sit in the stands. The reason that he has so much trouble with the rodeo circuit is because he keeps going backstage where there are things to knock over and then knocking them over. Why doesn't he just sit in the stands far away from any pony?
Presumably because he would destroy the stands.
Yeah, because he's just so freaking huge. Like, my impression
Right,
was he
but-
would
okay.
sit down and just snap everything like twigs.
No, but that brings me to my other grievance with the episode. Why is he a horse? Like, you've given him... We've seen large ponies before. Apple, Big Mac is a large pony. Troubleshoes is not a large pony. He is a horse. He has been given a very distinctive design that is much more equine than the other characters. Why did you give him this design if you were not going to do anything with it?
Possibly the dull
Saddle
answer.
Arabians?
The dull answer is probably, since we've been talking about metaphors, is to take the whole bull in a china shop metaphor to its
Yeah.
extreme.
But that's when we first saw he was a horse. My assumption was this was going to be a discrimination episode. That he's not a pony. He's a horse. He's different, and he either feels unwelcome or he actually is unwelcome, and the CMC have to work through that. Or even I was thinking since cutie marks have been a theme, it was going to be horses don't get cutie marks, and he feels like he doesn't have any special talents as a result, or something like that. But instead they gave him this super distinctive design to do nothing with it. And don't point to Saddle Arabians because their design was different specifically to flag them as foreign. Sorry, I feel strongly about the fact that he was a horse.
Okay,
It's
obviously.
really interesting because you bring up a lot of good points. Plus, it's
Obviously, we
hilarious
just
watching
get-
you rant.
Obviously, we just need to get M.A. Larson on the Seattle Angels and put him in a room with Gab Jaxie and let them just go back and forth.
I would be very interested to see that.
this episode of the show suck so much?
If we want to get too specific, I mean, this was a Dave Polsky episode with Over a Barrel, Owls Well That Ends Well, I think, Too Many Pinkies.
Too Many Pinkies was okay. Had some plot holes.
I like
And
Too Many
also,
Pinkies.
also murder, like rampant.
Alice Wells at Enswell was also kind of good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because seriously, that Snidely Whiplash mustache. Oh my god, right in the childhood.
Yeah.
We also, at the end of the day, have to step back and go, it's a kid's show about magical pastel ponies.
No, we don't. You are incorrect.
Well, I basically say that just in the please don't send death threats to people. I don't mean it in the sense that we shouldn't be debating and arguing it, because I think we absolutely should. It's just, at the end of the day, take a breath and don't, tell someone they should go kill themselves, please.
No, I mean, well, first, I didn't say anything like that. And second, if
I
I
know
met
you didn't.
Dave
It was more
Polsky-
for the benefit of people listening who do think about stuff too
You
much
mean
and
all
get
of our
really pissed
millions of
about it.
viewers?
Exactly. Well, come on. The Russian guys might pick it up again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, like if I met Dave Polsky, my reaction would probably be, "Oh, that's really cool. You're part of the writing staff. It's great to meet you. I love the show."
Yeah.
It is you guys, and you guys alone, who get the pleasure, and in fact, I would even say the honor of hearing me bellow about why is this character a horse? Because he should not be.
Why didn't you make the ponies racist, damn it?
It is interesting. It
We
is
already
interesting
know
that
they're capable of racism. We saw Zecora.
It is interesting that the Cutie Mark Crusaders sang that song "Hearts as Strong as Horses," but we never actually find out what they think of real horses. Or
I
at
hated
least,
that song.
Yeah.
like, why would they sing about that and then, like, you don't actually find out what relation horses have to ponies?
Yeah, I mean, do they look at Saddle Arabians and go, that's a horse? Or,
But ponies
like, are there
horses.
others, like, Troubleshoes, and they go, no, that's a horse?
But ponies are horses.
Also,
But
No, they're not.
ponies are-
They're ponies.
Ponies are ponies in Equestria.
Yeah. And in the real world, ponies and horses are two different things.
I mean, it's like
But
they
like common
obviously
sense.
don't see other hooved creatures as similar to them. Otherwise, why did they freak out when they saw Zecora? You know,
Yeah.
they'd be like, "Wow, she looks exactly like a pony except she has stripes."
No,
they're like,
actually, they were freaking out about Zecora because she walked in with a hood, hid her face, and dug holes in the ground.
oh wow, you're gonna make fun of the zebra for wearing a hoodie? Really?
Racial profiling!
Nah, it's all coming out now. All the repressed hatred.
All that secret bigotry you're expressing.
Yeah. I
We
know
might have a
I'm.
Horizon!
Wait, what?
Horizon just signed in.
Oh, excellent.
Hey.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
It's been
Do you want to replace Jax?
Stream is
And
over.
drag Horizon in?
No, you can't. I was just getting into angry rant mode.
Well, that's my point. We need to drag Horizon in here
Yeah,
so
we
he
might
too
save
can be very
Horizon for the
insane.
next stream because this one's hitting its time limit.
I know.
Yeah.
All right, continue angry rant.
Horizon is on the horizon.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess generally, for me, all of the best episodes of the show are episodes that actually contain a really good Aesop. Sort of, even when we left the whole season 1 letters to Celestia, the best episodes of the show are the ones where you can clearly draw some parallel between what is happening here and real life, and there's some sort of heartwarming lesson at the end. So, like for instance, to cite Too Many Pinkies as an or actually even better, A Matter of Time as a good example. While not many of us have access to time travel, the lesson Twilight learns of you need to be reasonably cautious about the future, but not stress yourself out with worrying about what may come. That's a really good lesson. And what? What? Oh, really? Okay. I'll deal with you later. And the episode delivers it really well. Or, of course, you have pretty much all of Season 1. And even in later seasons, you get to things like Wonderbolt Academy that does a pretty good job of that. And that's when the show is at its strongest, and I feel like it's at its weakest when it takes itself too seriously, like Over a Barrel.
I have a question. Pav, have you told Jaxie about the magic that is forcible touching?
Oh, yes, he has.
Oh, yes. I think both of us did.
So, Pav is currently working on a fic, which I will say, I'm not going to say I get all the credit for it, but it was my suggestion.
I learned from the master, okay, because we had you go through your Trello list of taking a fic and stealing it and improving it, and so now I am taking a fic of Jaxie's and stealing it and improving it by adding Twilestia.
Yes.
And I'm helping.
Is it Siren Song?
No. I wrote, although that would be hilarious, no. I wrote a fic a while ago called Modern Medicine. The premise of which is a debauched, corrupt future version of Twilight comes back to cause a series of events to occur which will lead to Twilight becoming that corrupt, debauched, somewhat evil future version of herself. And there's no happy ending to the story. Twilight fights and fights against fate, and the takeaway is just it's inevitable. It will happen. And it's a very sad story. Pav is writing a story called A Fork in Time, which is where a corrupt, debauched version, future version of Twilight comes back in time to seduce Princess Celestia because now Twilight is older than Celestia, and so Celestia is the one who will be young and vulnerable. How the tables turn, Celestia.
And also to show future Twilight how to seduce Celestia so they will get together.
Yes.
Well, yes, obviously. The tables need to be set one way before they can be set the other way. How can future Twilight get revenge on Celestia for seducing her when she was young and vulnerable if Celestia doesn't seduce her when she's young and vulnerable?
It is a closed, stable, time loop fetish.
Yes.
And it is going to be brilliant.
It is. No pressure, Pav.
None whatsoever.
So I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think we should.
I was going to say, I'm sure we could come up with more questions, but we should probably start wrapping up.
About time we hit that dusty trail.
And I can finally get the coding.
Well, some of us have to actually, do schoolwork and have jobs and blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
You
Yeah,
should
but
be
you would have nothing of that, wouldn't you?
The rest
All
of
right.
you took this job.
All right. Now I have to ask a question. How do these things wrap up? Because every other time I've been watching the live stream, as soon as it becomes clear that the jokes are over, I click out. So I don't actually know
Oh, well,
what
the end just